before kicking ass and taking names as the thing, or even putting on the shield in The Shield. This actor played a police officer in a different type of
And
procedural.
it's Thursday. You know what that means? It's time for us to have another Throwback Thursday. And we're gonna go back in time, throw up that celebration, because Heart of the Stories we tell, and me, Rob the host, is going to take us back to a quick nostalgic look and see how a story was that might be a little bit on the older side. So celebrate your week almost being over as we look at
The Commish was a procedural that focused more on comedy than on action. And I have to say that the idea of having a protagonist who deals with problems through intelligence and through just common sense is something that we lack in some of the stories. The smart but tough protagonist is something we don't see a lot of anymore. But let's throw this up there and get started.
So once again, it's stop. Spoiler time.
The setting of the story is Eastridge, a small upstate New York town that former NYPD police officer Tony Salih is. The characters, on the other hand, other than the commissioner himself, follow a basic sitcom formula. There's his family, and then there's his coworkers. Now, both of which play a big part. We have reoccurring characters in the first season that become major players in the later seasons. We have characters that go on to do their own thing. But for the most part, what we have is the people around the commish, the police officers that serve and trust him, and his wife and son, who, of course, look up to him and look to him for leadership. It's linear with only a handful of flashbacks here and there, but for the most part it's just the story of what it's like in this small town with some actually pretty decent crime rates. As for the point of view, we spend like 90% of our time in the Commish's mindset. And actually it's a pretty good place to be because he's a pretty fun character to see have all these problems and how he deals with them. The big stuff though comes here, theme and symbolism. For mostly a comedy, this show dealt with some pretty serious themes. From police corruption, to drug abuse, to child abuse, you name it. It wasn't just random murderer of the week. And you have to remember, they're doing very careful work to keep a balance between his job and his home life, even to the point where some of the police officers would come home and have dinner with him and talk about cases so that they could keep the story flow there. But at the same time, we have what exactly is a work life balance? I mean, in today's day and age, a police officer already has problems keeping with this. Now, I will say that one of my only problems with the series is that it makes the commissioner also the police captain for all intents and purposes, which may be true in small towns, I'm not sure, but isn't definitely not true in where I live. Now, the show itself handles things, like I said, through thought and comedy a lot. The situations that could be handled through major issues of force are completely and totally circumvented. Which brings me to the good, the bad, and the ugly. I remember reading years ago that when asked what show had the police officers most likely to believe that it was a realistic story, I was told it was the Andy Griffith Show. Because you spend most of your time dealing with drunks, idiot partners, and paperwork at your desk. This show actually was fairly realistic. They didn't pull their guns that often. When they did, it was a big deal. I will say, rewatching season 1, they do service the joke a little too much. More than once or twice, I would roll my eyes, saying, okay, I see this joke coming, I see this gag coming. But at the same time, there were some surprise episodes, ones that really made you think. One of my favorite ones was the fact that there were twins that both confessed and then both said they didn't do it. And the way the commish proved who did and didn't was based on what the name of a painting was, based entirely on the concept of one had dyslexia and one didn't. And as someone who's dyslexic, I actually would understand reading it backwards. So it was an interesting one, where again, head instead of gun. I also really appreciate the fact that they handled the idea of shootings the way they did, including the fact that sometimes a cop could be cleared from a shooting, but still get fired because, yeah, we all know it wasn't right. In today's day and age, I'd love to see a show like this, but we don't really make them like that anymore. At least that's my opinion. What do you think? Have you seen The Commish? And if so, let me know what you thought down below. Of course, also let me know if you liked or enjoyed this video, Give me a thumbs up and a share of this video. Subscribe to my channel if this is your first time here. What I'm trying to do is build a community, one where we can look at all stories, and in this case, a more lighthearted look at being a police officer. But in general, I want to look at all of them. For now, I hope you have a good night, and thank you for walking with me through the heart of the Commish.